Hello and welcome back to the TorontoWebsiteDeveloper.com. I am Peter Jaworski, the Toronto Website Developer specializing in Drupal. And in this 7th video tutorial of our 10-part video tutorial series on advanced e-commerce development using Drupal 7 and Ubercart, we are going to take a look at the LESS module. So what this actually does is it provides us with a pretty cool framework for CSS. And LESS wasn't developed specifically for Drupal, but it's something that's been adopted into a module so that we can use it as an available tool. Now, I was introduced to this by the Ubercart team, specifically Alex, thought this would be a great thing to show new users to Drupal. And since having learned about it, I use it on all the sites that I'm actually working on. Just because it's so cool, it's so intuitive, and it makes things so much easier when you're doing some CSS work. So when we walk through this video tutorial, what I'm going to actually do is show you how to get this set up on Drupal. And if you're familiar with LESS, then you can turn off the video tutorial. But if you're not, I'm then going to walk you through kind of nesting, variables, mixins, and functions and operations. And so that's all that LESS provides us. But the amount that's actually there is mind-boggling. I'm not going to have the ability to actually walk you through all CSS. That's not the intent of this video tutorial, but what I want to do is teach you how to use LESS so that you can go off and do some cool things and let me know how you're using it. So that said, why don't we go ahead and we'll go over to drupal.org/project/less. And I believe you downloaded this in a previous video tutorial, but if not, what you're going to do is go ahead and download this tar file. And once you do that, you're going to also have to go over to project/libraries, so drupal.org/project/libraries. Grab that module as well, download it and install it. And then when you have those, you're going to actually have to go over to leafo.net here, and you're going to grab the download here, less.php. And that's going to come in as a zip file. And what you're going to do is you're going to FTP into your site. You're going to go to your Sites All Libraries folder, which we previously created when we were using Colorbox. And from your download, once you extract that, you're going to get less.php as a folder. You're just going to upload that folder into your library so that when you look into the less.php folder, you'll have less.c.inc.php. And that's going to be a file that Drupal is going to use, so you're going to need that. But that said, we'll go back into our theme here because we're going to do some other stuff that we've got to work on. So we've got that all set up. Next thing we have to do is, because we're using Omega, we've got to get this working with Omega. So there's some instructions here which take us specifically to a comment, which is awesome and hugely helpful. So always a good thing to let people know that they're helping you out. And we are going to download our info file. So I'm going to go back to my file folder here. I'm going to go ahead and download that. I've already got it. Open up our editor, and here's what the info file looks like. You're going to see that there are 3 lines in here for CSS, and it's going to reference the global.css. So if we weren't using LESS, this would be the file folder, or the file rather, global CSS, that we'd be overriding for our custom CSS. I'm going to take these 3 lines out, and I'm going to replace them with the 4 that I got off of the comment there, and I'm going to change some of this up. So my project styles is going to be, UC series example styles, and then less CSS style sheet for UC series, right? And this can obviously be anything you want it to be, this name and description, but you've got to leave this file structure the way that it is. As well, the weight 10 heavier makes it load last, so you want to make sure that that's the case. And then it's specifically looking for this global.css.less file, so we're going to have to create that. Let's go ahead and save this, and then we're going to upload it back up to our site. So I've got my info file. Go ahead, upload that. It's going to tell me that I'm overwriting file, no problem. And then that's in there. If we go into our CSS folder, you'll see that I've already got global.css.less. That's because I've created this. You're going to have global.css in there, so you can go ahead and delete that. And then just create a file. It can be blank, doesn't matter. It doesn't have to have anything in it. But just create global.css.less and go ahead and upload that. So now that you've done that, we're going to go back to our site, and what we need to do is go to Modules, and we're going to search for libraries, and we're going to enable libraries and less CSS processors, so go ahead and do that. You'll see I've already done that. And from there, we're going to go to Settings, and we're going to go to our subtheme. Now our subtheme specifically lists all the CSS that's loaded, and because we've added a new file, it's not going to be checked off by default. So you'll see here I've got UC tutorial series CSS. That's what I just added into the info file. this normally by default is not checked off. It's checked off because I was previously working on this video tutorial series. So I can go ahead, you would go ahead and check that off, make sure it's done, and save that. You also have to go over to your deltas, and whatever you created that was an override of your existing theme settings, you're going to have to check that off as well. So if you're doing cascading deltas, you have multiple, you should just have to do the top one. But you know, this is site dependent, so if you have to go into all of them, you have to go into all of them. But you'll see you want to check that off as well. That's normally not going to be checked off. So you're going to save that. And the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to Configuration, Development, Less Settings. And we're going to want Less Developer Mode. So we'll go ahead and save that. And what that does is it makes sure that the less files are redone on every page reload and that they're not cached. And the reason why we're doing that is because we're going to be walking through quite a number of changes. So we want to make sure that they're always picked up anytime we upload new changes. So I think that's it in terms of configuration. We're going to go back to our home page and start off doing some CSS work. So just before we get started, I should flag for you that in the template file, I've gone ahead and I've changed a couple things. So what I want to do is I want to create a 3-column layout, and that's what I'm going to show you here. So in order to do that, I've added this new class, product type image, and I've put that div around the actual product type and the images. So that's going to be kind of my first column. Then my second column is going to be product body, and I've actually added this class. I don't think it was there before. So that's my second column. And my third column is going to be the product details and the add to cart, and that's already in its own column, so that's okay. So that's good. So I made those changes. The other thing that I did is I added another 2 lines, well 3 really if you have the closing bracket, to my template.php file. And what I did here was I wanted to add a class specifically telling me what view type I was looking at. So if we go over to our structure content types product, manage display, you'll see I've got teaser. I've also got full page. So if I go into manage display, here's the default full page. And then I've got these other, right, default and teaser. And I want to know what I'm looking at because I'm going to manipulate the different layouts with different CSS. So in order to do that, I have to have a specific class that I can work with. And I'll show you what I mean. The teaser one already comes with this, but full products didn't, or rather the full view didn't. So I'm just going to, I've opened up my developer tools and I'll show you what this is. Drag this over so you can get a look at it. And so here's all the CSS and the divs and the structure of my actual page. And you'll notice here in article I've got node teaser, but there was no corresponding node full page. So I've gone ahead and I've added that with these specific lines. What it does is it looks at vars, looks at the full mode or the view mode, and then if it's not the teaser because that's already added, I'm going to add a new view mode. And so if you're curious what this actually is, you can always KPR vars just like we did in the previous video tutorial. So that said, I've shown you kind of the developer tools, so that's what we're going to be working with. That's what I usually work with when I'm doing any CSS on the site, just because you're able to see things live as they happen. And I usually do this on a wider screen, so we're going to have a little bit of trouble doing this, but it shouldn't be too bad. So I'm going to scroll down here, and these developer tools come with Chrome, and I think every major browser now have their own. Firefox used to be a plugin, and it might still be a plugin, called Firebug. So if you're on Firefox, check out Firebug, download that, and use it. Developer Tools comes with Chrome. You can just hit Control-Shift-I and open that up. And then Microsoft has its own as well, though it's a little bit ugly and clunky, though I think they're working on it, so I don't know. I don't use Microsoft. So here, what we're looking at is the actual structure. So let's go ahead and we'll take a look at our image here. So I used the magnifying glass and I clicked on the image and it brought me specifically down into that element. So I can just scroll back up and you'll see as I hover over these, they highlight what element I'm actually looking at, right? And so remember I said I added the div product type image. So that's right here. I can minimize that and then I can actually specifically work on this div itself. And so when I'm doing this and when you'd be working on your CSS, you can just type in the element style and you can start working on things and see them immediately come up and see what the effect would be. So I'm floating this div to the left and you can see all the other information kind of comes up onto the right. So that's what I want to look for when I'm doing my column layout. So that's fine. I want that, but then I also want to add in a margin. So let's go ahead and we'll add a margin of 2%. and that should be margin right, not a margin. Now don't worry, I'm not going to walk you through all the specific changes that I'm going to make to this site. What I'm going to do is, I just wanted you to get an idea of how you can actually use developer tools and work on your CSS here. And then we can actually take those values that we have and put them into our CSS file to make them permanent, right? So if I scroll down, I'll just show you the body here as one final one. So what did I do for body? So I'm just going to add a width here of 40%. I'm going to add a text, align, justify, and then I'm going to add a float left, right? And so there we can see things are starting to take shape, but they're getting a little bit ugly. And so lastly, you probably just want to add a float right on that one. And then we can see things are kind of getting a little bit cleaner here. And so now what I'll do is I'll actually open up my global.css and I'll take these file structures. So I know that here I'm using the product type image, and for that I went ahead, I'll just copy these, clean that up a bit, and then here I've got my product body. Go ahead and grab these three values, right, and there we go. And so that's how you can do some CSS on the fly, get an idea of what it looks like, and then paste it into your global.css.less file. So why don't I go ahead and I'll actually grab the CSS that I created and I'll walk you through what I did. And this will actually introduce us to a couple of the concepts we're going to cover with less CSS. So I've just pasted this all in, and as I mentioned, we're going to look at a number of different concepts out of less. And the first one that we're actually looking at, and you might wonder what the hell is going on, is nesting. And so what less allows us to do is create nests of these different classes, so that kind of cascade down. So remember when I said, well, I may not have said it, but what I wanted to do is create a look for our actual full page and then a look for our teasers. And so in order to do that, I've got to only hit the full page, and I do that by using this node full. Now without less CSS, what these actual styles would look like would be node-full product content, right? And then here would be my brackets, and then I would have to do the same thing again. I have to repeat node full product type image, open close, and then node full, right? And so you can see how that gets really tedious and really annoying. And so what less allows us to do is actually define that once, open the bracket, and then put everything that applies into that inside of those brackets. And so this is actually read as node full dot whatever, node full dot whatever, node full dot whatever. So that's nesting. Obviously I didn't do it quite to the degree that you could be doing it, but here's an example of how I'm using it to specifically target my pages and not my teasers. And so again, if we go over to, what was it, less CSS org, you'll get some other examples if you just scroll down here for variables of nested rules and how these actually look and apply. So that's the first thing I wanted to show you. The next thing that kind of seems weird is I'm using this at base 10. And what the hell does at base 10 mean? This actually refers to variables that I define. And so I haven't included them here, but let's go ahead and grab those. And I'll bring over these variables. And you're again going to wonder what the hell I'm doing here. So let's copy these, paste them. And variables, just like if we were doing any PHP development, work the same way. So I'm using this variable, base 10. I've defined it by simply the name, colon, and whatever value it has. And so base 10 for me is 10 pixels. And the reason why I do that is because I like to keep things on a 10 pixel system, right? So I can multiply base 10 by 2 to get 20, and then I always keep consistent so that things are related to each other. So that's what this base 10 means. So I've added this padding of 20 pixels all around the specific page content, right? Now, next thing that I've done is I've got this other variable of base color. And so I've specifically chosen some color. I grabbed this color scheme off of a less CSS page that I was looking at, an example. And you'll see what they actually look like when we go ahead and use them. But we can, again, use base color and just specifically define it into our styles here. So I use it as my font color. But I can use a function out of less CSS called lighten And what that does is, we'll go to the function reference, it's going to specifically lighten the color that I'm using. And so I went over this function reference, it's less.org slash hashtag reference. And what this does is it shows us all the functions that are available in less.css. And these are functions that are similar to what we were doing in template.php, right? Like Drupal uses these functions, Less uses these functions. And so when we look at lighten, it takes a specific argument of color, or I'm sorry, that's lightness. What we're looking for is lighten. It takes a specific argument for color, and then a percentage on how much to lighten that. And so in our example, I've actually embedded a call to another function, which is spin. And so spin actually returns a color that is, a certain degree in hue based on an actual color wheel, right? So it's going to take the color wheel and it's going to work with the degrees. So if you want 180, you'll specifically grab the opposite color for complementary colors and that kind of thing. So what I'm doing is I'm spinning the color wheel, grabbing my base color here, going 10 degrees, and then I'm lightening it by 20%. And I'm doing the same thing for darken. Darken just does the opposite, right? And so I've got those two, and then that's how you can create a complementary color scheme pretty easily using less. So I've then taken those darker colors and lighter colors, and I've embedded them as variables in the CSS. Now, that's nesting variables and functions. What we're also going to look at are what's called mixins. And again, this is kind of cool. So we're going to go ahead and grab a mixin, and we'll paste this. And what this does, again, is it saves us from a whole bunch of redundant typing. And so you'll notice the first one here, I've defined this border radius. And border radius is going to take an argument, and by default, that argument is going to be 5 pixels. So if I called border radius, didn't do anything, it would by default use 5 pixels. Here, in my product content, I'm defining border radius, and I'm giving it base 10. And then what that does is it's going to replace this call with these 3 different lines. And these 3 different lines, if you're familiar with CSS, apply to all the major browsers, right? And it's going to, in CSS3, and it's going to provide a border radius, but with one line, this will actually render out the 3 lines. So it saves me from having to type those out and every time that I'm using border radius. I know that might seem simple at first, but when you're doing a whole site, that's something that's actually really cool. So that's border radius. I've also gone ahead and defined reflect. And so what reflect actually does is it creates a mirror image, right? And don't ask me how this works or what all these are. I actually just stole this from another site, an example site, which I'm going to show to you. And I've defined that for my specific image. So where I have my image, it's going to create a nice reflection underneath to make it seem kind of cool. You could also add a shadow to that. But again, here I've actually defined this full long line. So I'll just scroll over in case you want to grab the entire thing too, but it's also on the example site I'm going to show you. And then from there, I can just define reflect and pass in the 2 arguments of length and opacity. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save that. And just in case you don't want to finish up this video tutorial, I'll show you that link that I was just talking about. 10 examples you should check out. So we'll go ahead for working with less. Paste this. Not going to walk through the whole page for you, obviously, but I just wanted to make sure you had the URL. So go ahead, check this out. Some cool stuff here, really helpful, and so I'm obviously relying on that for this example. So I've gone ahead, I've saved my page, I believe. Yep, I've saved it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to upload this. So global.css. Now let's hope this all works. I'm going to reload my page. Right? And there we go. Now we've got this cool looking, well, what I think is cool looking because I'm not a graphic designer, cool looking page where I've actually laid things out using complementary colors. Here's my 3 columns that I was talking about. I've got my type and my image in one, I've got my description in another, and then I've got my product details over here. I've gone lighter on the product details because I want to highlight to people, get their eyes moved over to the right, catch them so that they know this is $1 and here's the add to cart button. So that's why that's a little bit lighter. And remember I was talking about the reflective image, so this is actually done in CSS, so you don't actually have to go ahead and do this in Photoshop yourself anymore. Actual product image of Bailey, and then I've got this nice reflection underneath. So that's it for this video tutorial. I know that I didn't go super in depth, but what I wanted to give you an idea of was how to actually use this so that you can go out, do a little bit more research and start playing around with this and achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. Because obviously when you're doing CSS, you can do a whole lot of things. But just remember, when you're actually doing your CSS, use a major browser like Chrome or Firefox. Use their developer tools, and you can so you can actually look at your CSS specifically as you do it. To me, that's a nice tool. Some people are kind of old school, don't like doing that. I mean, everyone's got their own opinion, right? But again, you can hover over things and take a look at what you're actually working with. And the nice thing is, as you're doing this, you can go ahead and you can check off different elements and see what the effect is on the page. And then go over, just copy that into your less.css .php or whatever it is file. It's global.css.less. Upload that and get it checked out. So if you have any issues, please let me know. Unfortunately, I can't answer questions about CSS and how you accomplish things in CSS. You're better off just doing a quick Google search, because pretty much everything is out there. But again, if this video tutorial helped you, please let me know with a comment or a thumbs up. Always appreciate you subscribing to the channel, and we'll see you in the next video tutorial. Thanks very much.